Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Layer by Layer, the show about 3D printing and our place inside the industry. Today, we're going to be talking about FormLabs and Micronics, how we scammed another YouTuber, as well as updates about the API and Tangled Filament. But before getting into that, let's go ahead and pay the bills. This episode is brought to you by TangledFilament.com. Tangled Filament is working to bring the cost of filament down to $10 per spool. We're doing this by optimizing production and everything else throughout the value chain, picking at pennies everywhere we possibly can in order to create a product that is both good quality and low cost so that FDM printing can take over the world the way it's supposed to. So go over and check out the filament over there right now. You can have any color you want, so long as it's black. We have PLA, and it is currently $15, down from $22 when we started, and we're pushing our way on to $10. TangledFilament.com. So yeah, we got filament over there, as we normally do. We are working on trying to get a few other colors in place here. So the basic white and gray should be coming. We're doing some revamps of stuff in order to allow that workflow. And quite frankly, your guys' reception to Wonk has been very helpful in that. But we'll talk about that a little bit more later on. All right. FormLabs has acquired Micronics. Micronics had a week or so to go yet on the Kickstarter, and literally just this morning, we got the news that FormLabs has acquired Micronics. This is effectively an acqui-hire because Micronics was two guys, Henry and Luke. They had the Kickstarter. They'd raised 1.3 million in like their first week on Kickstarter and kind of floated around that the whole time. So it was they're bringing in that expertise because Henry and Luke are now the experts in how to make SLS desktop machines effectively. So this, from my outside perspective, this looks like a really good decision on the part of FormLabs because they are the ones who were the closest to having desktop-ish style SLS machines. Their machine was certainly the most affordable. That all being said, with the Micronics machine, Henry and Luke, I think on the Kickstarter it was about $1,500 or so. And even the way they had made it, I thought that was too low priced. I thought that they should have that machine up somewhere around maybe even $4,000 in order to be a sustainable company. And that's very normal for an early engineering project. People underprice what it is. And I understand manufacturing efficiencies and all the rest of it, but that machine and at the scale they're at, they don't have that many efficiencies. And with the volumes that they were moving there. So I'm going to guess that this acqui-hire, I don't know what the value would be. I'm going to say probably sub 1 million. And then they get the jobs at FormLabs, where they get to work on this machine and take their ideas and have access to scale. So I think it's a really good outcome. And then they also, quite frankly, bring a bunch of information over to FormLabs about how people respond to this type of machine. They did, let me be clear, they did a fantastic job. Not only did they create a really good machine, but the execution of the Kickstarter, the engagement with influencers, all of this stuff, they did a great job. I'm so proud of those guys. They did a great job. For guys coming out, building a machine, getting it out there, having it formalized, doing a good job, getting a Kickstarter out there, just good on y'all. So congratulations to Micronics for that. And excited to see what happens in the future. I don't expect a big old $1,000 machine to come out onto the market in the next couple of years. Because SLS is just kind of limited in that way. It's a reasonably complex system, even with the work that they did to simplify it down and focus on certain features. It's a tough thing to do. But it's good. Good for them. Other news, BASF has spun off all of its 3D printing assets into Forward AM technologies. Forward AM had been created a few months ago, and was basically Sculptio being pulled into the service part, and now BASF, whatever you want to say, is now putting materials and everything over into Forward AM2. So all of their additive manufacturing tech is moving over to Forward AM technologies. And this is generally a pretty good decision. These large chemical companies like Mitsubishi, BASF, whoever all, DuPont, they're they are as bureaucratic as you can imagine a company to be, because they've been around for forever and they work in commodities, and commodities just have exceptionally bureaucratic teams or bureaucratic organizations around it. So spinning this off is a good decision to where this now smaller, leaner organization can focus on customers and focus on the core products here while still having access to the whole material pipeline and resources of the parent company. But not having to operate within that company, so they can be a lot more nimble. And that's a very good decision. As far as how, and that's what they said the decision was for. It makes them more nimble. And it's like, yeah, I'll bet it does. Because there have been so many 3D printing projects that have died on the vine inside of companies because they just don't do the basic stuff well. Because you can't have a 6-month lead time in operational when you're dealing with startup-ish companies like 3D printing companies who are engaging with filament and that kind of stuff. So all that. But yeah, that's the news. There's not a lot of news. I know I whine about this like every other week, but there's not a lot of news. I was surprised because with Rapid a couple weeks ago, I thought there would be more significant announcements that would kind of have continuous stuff coming through, but there weren't a lot of announcements. I mean, yeah, we merged, we made another machine, and so on and so forth, but nothing kind of industry notable really happened at the trade shows. There was the Desktop Metal and Nano Dimension merger, and quite frankly, that stole the show of the 3D printing news cycle. And yeah, this week there's a FormLabs and Micronics, which is not really a consolidation; it's an acquisition of a reasonable startup. So yeah, there's just not that much going on the last couple of weeks. But let's keep on rolling then. Tangled Filament updates. So one core thing, reused spools are not available anymore, and the whole site's been updated. We don't ship with reused spools anymore. The reason we are stopping reused spools is because, number one, they're not a reliable supply chain. We had used spools that we had accumulated inside the farm, so we had thousands of those laying around, so it was good. But even with submissions and stuff from people, we cannot do reuse spools on an ongoing basis. We will have batches that we will spool on reusable spools, but these are going to be very intermittent, and we're going to deal with it. But the other thing with the goals of Tangled, which is helping to bring raw material costs down, part of bringing down the cost is super high consistency and reliability. Like, we cannot bounce between different spool formats, which is what you do when you reuse spools. So even if our process is efficient, you guys don't know for sure what is coming, or we have to detail what is coming each time there's a change, which means the cost just went up. So none of it works. So for our spooled 1 kilogram spools right now, they are going back onto plastic spools from our supplier. We're working to get to Spooless just as quickly as we can. But these plastic spools are not compatible with a Bamboo Lab AMS. Here is the thing. I believe you don't have to put the spool into the AMS to use it. You can pop open the lid and hang like a rack of spools above it and just feed it straight in. And I think you can get the same result. I think. I'm not certain. If that is the case, we have a rack on tangledfilament.com where you can download the STL and print it out, and it'll hold anything from a 3 kg spool to the 1 kg spool, and it's fine. Standing or mounted on the wall. They're both fine. So, yeah, that's the situation with spools on Tangled. Oh, Wonk. So we released a batch of Wonk last week, and you guys all sucked it up. We generally discount Wonk. We might stop doing that because it did get sold really fast. I don't consider it a good quality product because, again, it's not consistent and you don't know what you're going to get. But we may try to feed into it a little bit by explicitly kind of creating Wonk, like with interesting colors, like, oh, here's purple and orange or something along those lines. Doing those types of actions that create an interesting material for folks who want the randomness inside of their products. Because it is useful when you're selling final products to know that yours is a one of a kind, even if it's from a manufacturing aberration. So we may explicitly take Wonk, current Wonk, where we're just transitioning from like gray to black or whatever it was, or from orange to black, where it's just going to be kind of low-grade suck gray. That stuff will continue to be discounted because I don't consider that a good product. But the rest of it, if we ever try to engineer Wonk filament, or we will try to plan transitions between cool colors so that it looks cool, it looks nifty. And we can do this best when transitioning to black because we can have the color and then we can there's things we can do to incentivize this if it's valuable when we do those changes. Comment down below if a transition multicolor filament is something that you're interested in and would like use a lot of, other than just like, I need a spool of that because it's cool, because we can't do that. But if we can make our extruder purging process more valuable, that'd be cool. And it helps with everything else because, again, if we're making money over there, then we can then further discount regular filament. Going to Spooless, waiting on the machine. It is about to be shipped to us, which means it'll take about 3 weeks to get here once it is shipped. So ideally within a month, we'll start testing and building out workflow for Spooless. We've got it planned. We have it all planned, but now we have to find out what's wrong with the plan. And we'll know that when it arrives. Our Spoolless spools will have a cardboard core and the outer reel. Likely, potentially zip ties. We might do something differently. Not going to talk about that too much more beyond that, but we might do something differently. We'll see. Okay. Let's see here. What else? Tangled. No more. Yeah. That's pretty much the Tangled update. Go grab some stuff. We got gray. Oh, black over there. We're working on getting gray activated. The gray, the main problem we've had has been actually with the master batcher for the gray that we want to use for Tangled. So it's recipes. You know, everybody's got a different amount of baking soda they put in everything. Long term with Tangled, we are starting work on PETG. PETG, I think, will be coming sooner rather than later. PETG was scheduled for the spring of next year. We might get it done before then. But we got to get it done before November. So before we get really busy, because it's the Christmas time. But we might get PETG before that. If we get PETG, once PETG is up and rolling in Tangled, we have a version 2 PETG, which is when we're messing with the material. And it's going to be sick. Like, if we get this pulled off, it'll be sick. And if all of our assumptions are correct, the improvement I shouldn't say improvement. The value will radically increase without increasing the cost of material. I'll say that. It's really sick. Okay. By the way, also, even though I'm keeping it a secret right now, the thing I'm thinking is not a secret. We have mentioned it before, like 4 years ago, in like letters to manufacturers of things that they should do. So it's not even a new idea, but it's going to be sick when it comes out. It's just we've been working on it. We've been trying to get it done for so long, and we've done a little bit of it internally and that kind of stuff, but we've never like committed to it. But this will do it. Okay. API updates. The API again, all you guys, the 3D printing API, great. All that stuff is coming along. There are a number of updates coming to API, both around payments and around order structure. A few weeks ago we released additional colors. We'll start releasing more colors here after a little while, but we want to we want to revamp a few things in back end as in full farm, all the rest of it as much as we can here. The main with API though, the order management, there will be individual user sessions so that there's not a double billing. We're doing that with a few of our current partners who have asked for that, so we're getting that out. And then multi-part. And multi-part will do a couple of things. It'll allow you to create single products that are printed with 3 different colors, or whatever it happens to be, as well as multi-part prints that are individual files rather than grouped files. Again, this is kind of dependent upon backend because it's very difficult to reliably have a workflow where all the pieces of a part are produced on very separate machines and then all come together into a single order that looked like they were printed on a single machine. It's not difficult to print that. It's difficult to have all the process downstream to make sure quality control is where it is and so on and so forth, because it ends up with a lot of different inputs to where two parts can have a different life cycle, and we're trying to get that all coalesced. So it's less of a software problem and more of a production system tracking problem. It's a system problem. Okay, so that's API. Alrighty. Next topic. Morley Kurt. So, how we scammed another YouTuber. First of all, whatever I say in the next following parts, like there's no bad blood between us and Morley, at least so far as I'm aware. I talked to Morley this morning, working on our video and that kind of stuff. And yeah, so this is just an unfortunate situation. So last week, Morley Kurt, who I recommend his channel, you should go check it out, it's good stuff, did a video of a Magis chair, which is a circular wobble chair, if you've ever seen one of those. He did the video. It's a great video. Again, we'll encourage watching that. He reached out to us to both help and to collaborate on it because he didn't have a large format machine available. And we were like, oh, this is cool. That chair would be nifty. That'd be a fun project. Not a project that we normally do, but a fun project. And I'm always down for fun projects. I had reached out to Morley like 4 or 6 months ago. He made a video selling 3D prints on the boardwalk, or that's what he was doing in the video. I can't remember what the title of it was. But he did that video. It went across my feed. I thought it was cool. I shot him a message to say, hey, if you ever want to collab, love to do something with you. That'd be fun. So he reached out about 2 months ago about this chair idea. And he said, I want to make this chair. I should be doing it with large format. And we said, yes, you should be doing it with large format. He said, just can't get a hold of a large format machine. Joel's machine is broken. So we were like, well, we can cut it into pieces and we get it printed out. The issue with this project was that it was rushed. It was rushed in the context of what had to be done. I mean, it sounded like a simple thing, but like for a video or for a maker project, it's fine to do what was done. For a product, which is what like we really focus on, it was the wrong thing to do. So with the project, Morley designed the chair, and then he sent it over to us. Within this, as a collab, we're playing with it. Going to do a video about how to design furniture for mass production printing, because guess what this channel's about. But what ended up happening is because let me step back of this. We didn't necessarily expect that we were going to have to fully design all the braking in the chair. We thought Morley would do a cut of it. But we ended up doing it because he was busy with stuff too, and we were busy, and there was time constraints. So took the time. We donated all the design time because, again, like we thought this was going to be a project too. So we did all the design for free, and we were just going to bill him for the material for the chair, like not even print time, setup, none of that stuff. So a project that would normally be probably a couple grand or so to do all the engineering and then all the prep and all the printing and all the rest of it, he got done for, I think, like $400, and then you got to ship a 60-pound chair around, which was like $150 to get it delivered to him. So got a screaming deal in that context. But again, it was a collab video. We were helping out. We did the design of it, and when we went into it, we wanted to design it correctly. Like, okay, here's the chair. How do you design this for production? Breaking it into these pieces. And the right way to do it is each one of the pieces should have a joining feature on it. And the pieces themselves, the cuts shouldn't be as pie slice as was done, as we ended up doing in the video because of time constraints. We had to just cut it, go. But the right way to do it is to have those pieces kind of settle into each other, kind of like an upside down Christmas tree, where as a person sits into them, they all press together tighter and tighter, and it has more structure that way. There's a few problems with the Magis chair. Number one, it was designed for rotational molding, and it was also designed by designers. So literally, they showed off some of the iterations. There's a fat, really bulbous version that they looked at and they didn't like. That was actually a version that I pitched to Morley. I'm like, we should change the design of this chair because you can basically just do the outer, if we can make this thing fat and bulbous, you can basically just do the outer ring and the inner becomes hollow, and then it's way more material efficient. But Morley wanted to stay really true to the original design because it helped with his video. Because it's Magis chair. It's part of the story. But anyhow, so we could not fully redesign the chair in a way that was optimized for printing. And then we did not have time to engineer how to piece together the chair that was a replica, the replica chair. So we ended up pie slicing the whole thing out. There were 3 shots at that because that pie slicing created some weirdness and there were some other holes and stuff, problems we had to deal with. It turned out to be a bigger modeling project than we thought to just cut this thing up in an intelligent way. Because we can't just like throw a grid in there and like subtract and say, there's build volume, pull each one of the pieces, because that is the easiest way to do it. It's just to straight grid cut the thing, but then it wouldn't be structurally sound, holes wouldn't be anywhere, all the rest of it. We had to engineer how the parts were cut. So we did this pie slice, put the holes in the end, all the rest of it. We had designed it for wooden dowels because Morley said he was using glue. I never trust glue. And for this chair had these really thin outer lips on it that they terrified me. I was like, as soon as a person sits down on this thing, it will potentially break. 1/2-inch dowels in those suckers and higher density print. So that upper lip, the outer lip, and the nose cone of it effectively were all denser to make sure that they were strong enough. And then we had designed it for 1/2-inch wooden dowels, like 1-inch wooden dowels to go all the way around. And then printed those out. If this was a production project, what would have occurred is we would have printed a couple of demo pieces, double-checked fit, tweaked it a little bit, make sure everything fit together easy, went all together. Like we would have done the extra 5% that makes it get over the edge. But again, timeline. We ended up with about 2 weeks to cut and print this thing, which is fine if that was the only thing we were doing, but we have other stuff. So free projects can't absorb the entire farm or people's time. It took my nights, but that's okay. But so we did the cuts. If we were doing it right, we would have kind of sampled it a little bit. But with this one, we basically had to cut it and then start all those parts. To get them printed and out the door. Because Morley also, they had to be shipped up to him. He was in Canada. He had to pull them across the border and then assemble it where he was and all the rest of it. So there was just a lot of time constraints on it. So we did first shot. And there was a version change. And I still don't actually recall what the exact version note was. I just know that it happened in between the versions. But we had changed the diameter of the core between the 2 different versions, but a few pieces had already started printing. And then those 2 versions got mixed, and we didn't know that the core had changed in diameter between those 2 iterations. It created that gap, and it made a gap around the nose cone. We didn't find out about this until about 5 days before Morley posted the video, maybe a week before Morley posted the video. He had already built the chair. And then he said there was this problem that came up. I fixed it. I put foam in it. And we were like, oh, okay, cool. Sorry about that, man. Let us know if there's anything we do. If there was more time, we would have either replaced the pieces or we would have printed, designed out that ring that created the gap and put those and printed out those pieces, which would have taken like a day. Morley also could have done that. Like if he was stressed out from the assembly of the chair as a whole, he could have printed out that ring because he had the CAD files. We had sent over all the CAD for him to confirm before. So he could have cut out that little ring and printed it. So we did that. We did not use in-house material on the chair because it was a prototype chair and Morley wanted red. We don't produce red on our extruders. So we had to buy it off of Amazon or whatever else it was for like $15 a spool, which is not expensive material. Like we could have done whatever. We could have freaking used our AstroPrint material that's $1,000 a kilogram. Well, it's not red, but we had to use red, so we had to print his stuff in that. And when we quoted him, we said like it's probably going to be about $300 or $500 of material, that kind of stuff. But then with shipping, it ended up being more than what Morley had originally expected because shipping was $150, $130. So anyhow, this is all an education in rushed projects, because when you stop using the process, things get missed or people don't recognize things that are there, and the relationship is too fast, all the rest of those kind of things. So it's a lesson for everybody else out there to not do rushed projects, and we won't again. This is kind of the unfortunate thing because it was a fun project to work on, and it was a great video for Morley, but it's not a video we can ever do again. We can never put ourselves in that situation again because the video got 500,000 views, and the second and third comment in it are how Slant 3D screwed him. He didn't think we screwed him. I don't think he thinks we screwed him. Again, talking to him all the time. We seem to be fine. I don't know if there's a passive-aggressive undertone or somewhere about that. I apologize, Morley. Reach out to us if there's an issue that we need to get resolved. But it's about how Slant 3D screwed him. And that's not the point of the video, and that's not the intention that Morley was going at it with. But it is now the presentation that we have out there. So it's not helpful. And it's not like Morley's audience overlaps with our audience, but again, it's not helpful. So we as an organization have to be really careful, and this is so sad because now we're going to start degenerating into some kind of corporate bureaucracy systemology to where we don't engage with other people in the community because we're too scared of that. But like, gee whiz, this is one of our, is this our first collab? I think this is our first, I think we've done one or two before. I mean, we've like podcast interviews and that kind of stuff. I don't know what defines as a collab, but like if you get bit the first time you try it, you don't go back there very often. We don't want to degenerate to that, but we're just going to be very stringent. I don't even want to be very stringent. I like playing it fast and loose because it's more fun for everybody, but we can't be in this situation. I don't want to vet other people's videos. We're never going to do that. I didn't see Morley's video until he had published it on the channel. And I sent him an email saying, good job, it looked like a good video. It looked like a good video. But yeah, the reputational damage from good intentions, but just you can't rely on subtlety on the internet. And Morley's doing his thing. He doesn't have to think about our branding or our public perception or anything like that. He's doing his video and he's laying out what happened. So he, like when he shows, I expected it to be $500, it was $550. He doesn't break that down to like, oh, there was $150 of shipping on that. Or like, oh, they could make it with in-house filament, but they made it with off-the-shelf stuff. And I was like, we could never make it with in-house filament. We don't make red. And we also detailed that. Like, just those things that are not malicious, but they're subtle and they appear as blunt instruments when you're making a 10-minute video. So anyhow, that's like the whole situation. Like, again, don't anybody even remotely go bug Morley, please. I shouldn't even be talking about this on podcast, really, quite frankly, in that context. But yeah, just so we're clear, nobody bother Morley. We're good. And we're fine about it. But it's for us, operationally, and how we relate with the community, we got to be careful because subtlety gets lost on the internet. And when you're dealing with something as complex as manufacturing a product in a very short span of time, there's a lot of subtlety. There's duct tape and experience and expertise and attempts and missteps and all the rest of it to where the missteps stand out beyond everything else. So, yeah, I don't know if there's any other like takeaways from that I can take away or give to y'all. Yeah, I mean, it's like from our side, it was a fun project to work on. It was a nifty project to work on. It was a rushed project and a difficult project to work on. And ultimately kind of a negative for it, pretty much a negative for us because we did the project at cost. We didn't have the time to do the design video for it. We're going to we're going to try to get the design video out to talk about this in more detail in the context of like how to chop up a big part for production and scale it. But if we don't do that video, which is feasible, then it's just, we got a black eye and we were a dick to 500,000 people, which in the greatest, and again, not Morley's fault, but that's what has come out of it because internet. So we still want to collab with people. We still want to collab with people. We want to do stuff, but it's incumbent upon us to systemize more in a way that's not cumbersome, so that this is good, so that it's enjoyable for everybody involved still, but also not controllable, but has a known outcome, and preferably not a negative one, to where we're not reputationally damaged like that. Like it's just not, it's not helpful. That sounds melodramatic. I don't think it's as big of a deal as many people think, because like here's another takeaway. The internet is very momentary. People forget stuff in a day. So it's kind of the whole thing of like no press is good press, or bad press is good press. Any press is good press. That could be the situation where like people who are growing up, who watched Morley's video 2 years ago, think, oh, there was some company that made the chair, and we should look for them. It's possible. So there might be that. I don't know. But for anybody creating stuff on the internet, remember that anything 2 weeks ago doesn't exist. You're screaming into a tuna can and throwing it off a cliff. This podcast will only be dredged up 10 years from now if someone is out to get me. And if they could find anything terrible in this podcast, they can have at it. Like, go for it, whatever. But even though the internet stores everything, humans don't. And humans particularly don't store stuff on the internet. So we don't remember anything that we watched 15 minutes ago. So even though this hurts in this moment, and yes, there's a lot of negative hate going on that channel video, like hundreds of comments, I do believe, we'll be fine. And life will go on. The internet is not forever, and we'll survive. We've been kicked in the balls by lots of worse things in the world. This is not even that. So anyhow, but again, I want to reiterate, nobody bothered Morley. We're all good. This is all fine. This is just kind of to add some color to the situation and to give a good reference of what is a public project that we get to talk about. We generally don't get to talk about projects that went wrong in a very specific way because NDAs and stuff. We protect our clients' stuff. But Morley posted his on the internet. Full details of it all. So we get to post full details of it all. But anyway, that's the thing on that. We got a bunch of messages from people and that kind of stuff about that video. So it bared addressing on the podcast. Normally I'd just let it go because like, this is what it is. Like no one was out to get anybody. It's just subtlety on the internet doesn't exist. Okay, let's see here. What else? I think that's it, everybody. Comment down below any sort of content types that you'd like us to cover. We're looking for video ideas or things that you'd like us to dive deeper into. We've covered a lot of stuff on this channel. If there's something that you'd like us to go into in more detail, we're happy to do that. Have a great day, everybody.